After a very entertaining few months in non-conference action, the SEC play will begin coming up this weekend. Alabama and Kentucky, two powerhouse programs over the last few years. Under Coach Mark Pope and Nate Oates, they will tip it off at 11 a.m. there at Coleman Coliseum. A really interesting, intriguing game between two teams that were ranked inside the top 15 coming into the season. Welcome to Southeast Sports Plus. I'm Gerhard Mathangani, joined by Patrick Walsh. And Patrick, we have talked about the SEC success on the court going into the season overall. 14 teams set a new record. 14 of the 16 teams made the big dance last year, including number one overall seed Auburn, a team in Alabama who made the number one overall seed the year before that, and then a Kentucky program who, under Mark Pope in year one, really made a big climb here. So I think there's a lot of general interest in the way both these teams will start SEC play.
Before we even talk about this game, can you believe it's already SEC
This
play?
is
I mean,
insane.
I feel like
It's
we were
insane.
literally just talking about,
The season opening.
Yeah, the season opening, football going to be starting here pretty soon.
Yep.
And then you blink, and here we are. I mean, SEC play starting this Saturday. I believe it starts this Thursday on the women's side.
On the women's side, that's right.
On New Year's Day. So, I mean, it's just been absolutely crazy, and no better way to start SEC play, in my opinion, than Kentucky, Alabama. And it's been a tough year. It was a very tough start for Kentucky, especially being booed away from home. I believe that game was in Nashville against Gonzaga, being booed off the court at halftime, and I think the final score of that one, I think they lost by 40, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
To now you're starting to find a little bit of momentum here. You got a couple of nice wins, especially over your old rival in Indiana, the first time that game was played in quite some time, and then another nice win in Atlanta over St. John's. So it seems like it's starting to trend in the right direction for Kentucky, and they're going up against an Alabama team, which I don't want to say they're on fraud watch this early, but it's hard to ignore the struggles with rebounding.
Especially rebounding,
and how many shots they take per game and how many points they give up. Yeah, they score a ton of points, but they also give up so many points. So it's just, I don't want to say they're on fraud watch yet, but I mean, it's kind of trending towards that direction.
Right, and it feels like their problems are fixable because, like you said, a lot of times it's rebounding, and a lot of coaches will tell you rebounding is an effort thing, and energy and hustle. And it feels like Kentucky, as you mentioned, has really found that next year, because ever since they lost to Gonzaga in that game that you mentioned where they got booed off the court, before that they lost to North Carolina, before that they lost to Tom Izzo and Michigan State, and then of course lost their rivalry game to Louisville there on Veterans Day. But since that game that they lost here recently to Gonzaga, it's been a win over North Carolina Central. It's been a win over Indiana. It's been a win over St. John's. It's been a win over Bellarmine right there in the Louisville area. And so I think this team is, like you said, trending in the right direction. But as you mentioned, for Alabama, it just feels like a team that is not playing great basketball, although they feel like they have the pieces, LeBaron Furlan being one of them. It feels like they have the guys to get it done. It's just that Nate Oates and company, whenever they do lose, you can literally, if you look at the score and you just go to one stat, you go to the box score and look at the rebounds, and that's where they've been getting blown off the court.
But the crazy part is when you look at the rebound, when you look at some of these team stats, I mean, Alabama's averaging almost 42 rebounds per game, and they're out-rebounding Kentucky per game.
Right.
So, I mean, it's still just crazy to look at. But when I look at this, there's two numbers, not only the rebounds that you brought up, but it's also the points per game and the points against per game. And I think it's the points against per game that really sticks out, and the alarm bells are starting to ring in my head about this, because as I've said since basketball season started, it feels like Nate Oates runs an NBA-style offense where you just you take a bunch of shots, you take a bunch of three-pointers, and if they go in, you're winning these games with ease. I mean, we just saw them drop a 100-burger last year in the NCAA tournament, and then next game just unable.
Next game,
just you get eliminated the next game because you can't hit the three-pointer. So it's just you live and you die by the three, and I think Nate Oates is an incredible coach. I really do think he's turned the tide, no pun intended, for the Alabama men's basketball program. But I think his coaching style doesn't really play well in March, and that's just one thing that just kind of concerns me, because you definitely want to have a good defensive team in March. You want good guard play, and Alabama has the good guard play.
Yes.
But it almost feels like that's going to get canceled out by the play of your bigs, who you just haven't found any consistency at all this year, especially with rebounding, as you mentioned. And I just feel like we're going to be sitting here in March, and Alabama's going to be eliminated because they allowed 15-plus offensive rebounds.
Right. That's the biggest thing is a second chance opportunities for this basketball team. I had to go on to KenPom just to see where they rank, and not surprisingly, they're number 3 in offensive rating.
Yeah.
This Alabama team is 68 in defensive rating for this team.
That's an alarm bell.
Yes, exactly. And that's the reason why they rank 17 according to KenPom, 14 to the coaches. So it's about the same. Kentucky, by comparison, is 19th according to KenPom. A little more balanced offensively and defensively, 27th on defense and on offense, and then 24th there on defense. So it just feels like Kentucky's a better balanced basketball team right now, and as you mentioned, playing with a lot of confidence.
Yeah, I mean, they're starting to find that groove as they head into SEC play. They got those 4 straight wins, as we mentioned. I think the big one, in my opinion, was the one over St. John's. So they have a common opponent, or they have a win over a common opponent against Alabama. Obviously, Alabama, second game of the year, went up to Madison Square Garden and beat Rick Pitino and St. John's. But the reason why I honestly think, I really do think Kentucky has a chance here, even though it's at Coleman Coliseum.
Right.
Just because of that rebounding factor. It's just going to be something that we have to talk about this entire year. I think Otega Oweh, I wasn't in the locker room for any of these games, obviously. I just sit in this chair. I go home, and then I come back, and I sit in this chair, and I just talk about this. So I don't know what Mark Pope said to him, but I guarantee you he probably challenged him and be like, you know, you're the – I don't think he brought up the fact that he was the SEC preseason player of the year. But he basically, in kindly putting it, hey, you need to get your act right here pretty soon, because this team's going to go nowhere if you don't get your act right.
Right.
And it seems like he started to live up to that challenge. He took Mark Pope's challenge, and this team has just started to get better. And not only is Otega Oweh playing well, but also Cam Williams is starting to knock down those three-pointers here. So, I mean, as long as these guys start playing in their roles, Kentucky is going to start living up to the hype that they had in the preseason.
Right.
It's just taking a little bit of time for this team to gel, I think.
Right. And basketball is a trend sport that you want to be playing your best later in the year. So this might be coming at a good time for Coach Mark Pope and company. You mentioned Cam Williams as one of the guys that Coach spoke about, especially being able to hit those threes from downtown.
I think it was good for him to make him here, too. I think it was good for him to make him here in a Rupp. But at the end of the day, I've just never been, I think I've told you guys this for the last 2 months, I've never been in a space where the numbers don't actually translate. It's just time. It's just time and reps. And he's an elite level shooter, and so it's just his time. That's all it is sometimes it's the first day and sometimes it's the 60th day. But when you're a really good shooter, you make shots. It's not, you know, when you're like, our NOAA numbers always translate into on-court performance. They always do. It's never had an anomaly where it doesn't. And so this is just this is how it should be. So I guess I was kidding about the 8 for 10 every single night, maybe every other night.
It's a really interesting dynamic here with this Kentucky team. I was looking at the sports books to see if there was a number on this game just yet. I don't see one as of right now, and more than likely what they'll do is they'll come up after the teams play today, like Alabama plays Yale today. I think Kentucky's also on the court today in the final non-conference game of the season. But let's just say that Alabama is the favorite, which I'm thinking that the sports books will have them as a favorite. Do you see the Wildcats being able to shock Alabama?
Well, I mean, ESPN has them according to the analytics, at a 38.5% chance of winning at the time of this airing. So I wouldn't be shocked. I think Alabama's going to be, if going off of that percentage, probably an 8.5 point favorite.
Right.
That's probably what I would see them opening up at. I really do think Kentucky can beat this Alabama team, and I think as I mentioned about the rebounding, but I almost feel like this has got to be a killer to your morale if you're Alabama and you lose the SEC opener after, you have to face the noise about all of these rebounding problems. You can't win these big games. You went 2-2 in your big stretch against nothing but ranked opponents earlier.
Correct.
But you also lost that game to Arizona, and that one was like, wow, like we thought we were one of the best teams in the country, and the then number 2 team in the country comes in to our home away from home in Birmingham.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a short drive away, so it basically was a home game for Alabama.
Yeah.
And then to just get dominated in the second half, that's just got to be alarming. And then if Kentucky can just come in and just clean the glass. That's really all you got to do is just clean the glass.
Yeah, it's one of those things that Nate Oates is talking about, is about being able to be a good rebounding team and, like you said, kind of tighten the gap between the upper echelon and where Alabama sits right now.
Yeah, he's tough, makes tough plays on the glass. He ended up being our leading rebounder with 8. We got to find somebody at that 4 spot who can rebound the ball and still give us some offensive skills as well, kind of combination of both. And he's looking like, he's going to be able to do it. I didn't think his hip, I'm sure it's still bothering him. He's got it all bandaged up and everything, but it looked like it was a lot better than it had been against Arizona. He played a lot more passive in that Arizona game. He brought his aggressiveness back to this camp, so it's great to have him back in. I think these 4 days off over Christmas will be really good for him. Get his hip totally all healed up, I hope, so he can kind of take that aggressiveness to the offensive end as well as the rebounding stuff.
Now, obviously, the rebounding is one aspect of it, but what Alabama is doing well is scoring the basketball. Yes. They have one of the best players in America, LeBaron Philon, who's actually from here in Mobile. He was here last week doing a toy drive for all the kids in town, now back with the basketball program. And he is a player that can help spur this team, especially from the offensive standpoint. And I know Coach would probably want him to be one of the catalysts defensively and on the boards for the squad.
Yeah, and I almost don't really want to say, like, hey, does he have to carry this team this year? But it almost does kind of feel that way. He's 8th in Division I in 21.9 points per game. We talked about it to open up the year. It seemed like he was just dropping, nice numbers night in, night out against some of the better opponents, including St. John's. And his one-off game to open up the year was against Purdue, and that was one of the games that they ended up losing. I believe that was their first loss of the season. So it's just it's starting to trend in that direction, though, where he almost needs to have these high-scoring games just to offset the problems on the offensive or on the defensive glass, because as you mentioned, second chance points is what really killed them against Arizona, and it's going to hurt when you get into SEC play and you're going up against some of these teams that have these big men that are true glass cleaners and can go up and either put it back up or kick it out and you shoot the 3. And I think that's something that Kentucky has started to show that they can do, is, start to rein it in from deep.
Yep, he has 9 games where he scored at least 20 points, and twice in that run, actually 3 times now in that run, he scored 29. That's a career high. So I mean, this is a guy that can do it if called upon to do it. But you're right, they're going to have to want to balance that offense there with the defense and see if they can get it done. LeBaron Philon and company will hit the court against Yale coming up early in the season to finish off the non-conference part of the schedule before playing Kentucky to open up SEC play. So